X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach, and Adam, welcome!
Oh man, how you doing, Zach?
I'm doing all right. I'm living in an ever-expanding exponential world where the future and the past and the present may not be what it seems.
Yeah. I didn't expect to go to my local comic book store and leave with packets of Krakoa seeds today, but that actually happened. So...
I didn't expect them to be actual literal seeds. I thought they would be little plastic tchotchkes.
Oh no, they are.
Nope.
They are bachelor buttons.
They are. Marvel thought it was a great idea to get a bunch of endangered species and hand them out to X-Men fans and say, nourish these things, plant them, water them, grow them in the ground.
Oh, well, luckily we're not alone today, and we have someone who is nourishing all of this wonderful X content.
We do. Coming back for his second appearance on this podcast, you may know him from X-Men Monday or from literally every X-Men comic you've been reading for like the last year and a half. His name's right there, front and center. Well, not front and center, kind of middle and bottom, I think, is how those pages are normally laid out. Regardless, we have with us Jordan Delano White. Jordan, how you doing today?
My name is not actually Delano. That is a rumor that Jake Thomas tried to start, and I in turn call him Jake Taylor Thomas, which is also not accurate. But it is Jordan D. White. Yes, it's good to be here.
Good. Now, Jordan, you are the senior editor at Marvel over to the X-Men books, along
Correct.
with a few assorted others, correct?
Yeah. Although slightly fewer than there used to be, because I'm sad to say that Darren Shan shifted out of the X office into the Avengers office when the number of X books dropped dramatically. So now there are slightly fewer of us now. But yeah, me, Annalise Bissa, and Chris Robinson are all that's left in the X office. We're an endangered species.
Right. Because obviously right now Marvel is getting rid of all the X-Men things. We're just down to 2 books. I don't know why you guys aren't paying enough attention to this very good line. And I'm sure you've had talks with your higher-ups about this one, Jordan.
I know, it's crazy.
But no. Right now, X-Men is actually going through a very exciting time. Jonathan Hickman has launched House of X and Powers of 10, which, by the way, if you do the math, 10 is X in the context that they're using in the series, so call it whatever you want. I don't care. Johnny will be mad at you, but he doesn't want to talk to you anyway, so I don't think he's going to care that much.
He wants to talk to me. He talks to me like every day.
You're different. I don't know if, boss, you're a collaborator on this.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't want to talk to me, and he's only made that. He didn't say that in so many words. He just said he doesn't do interviews, which is fine. I understand his point of view. But we got you, which is great. That is not by any means a step down. That's like a horizontal move. And I'm very excited about it. It was fun last time. It's going to be fun now.
I hope so.
Now, speaking of last time, nothing that you had actually like approved as a pitch was being, like, announced when you were on the show last July.
Yeah.
And now a lot of things have been announced, a lot of things have happened, and a lot more things are happening.
That's true.
With the Dawn of X book. So, how do you handle keeping track of what you're allowed to talk about and what you're not allowed to talk about at any given time?
Well, I mean, that's a thing I've gotten used to over the years. I mean, I've only been on the X books for just over a year, but I've been at Marvel for, I don't know, 11, 12 now. What is it? It's 2019. So almost 12 years. And you know, I was working on Star Wars books. I was sitting there knowing exactly what was going to happen in a bunch of Star Wars movies and not telling anyone. That was pretty exciting.
That seems like I'll be honest, that seems like a bigger cultural deal. Secret. Those movies only make all the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that Luke was like, the Jedi have to end so much earlier than that movie came out, and I couldn't say a word.
Oh my goodness.
That's a lot. That's a lot to keep burdened on yourself with all those NDAs.
But I mean, like, but that's part of the fun too. Not lording it over people, although that is fun. But I meant more, like you said, I'm a collaborator on these books, so I am just as excited as the creators are to see the audience experience them as we intend them to. In fact, I'll be honest with you, it totally weirds me out when I go online on a Tuesday before the books come out and everybody's begging for spoilers. I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you want this? It will be better if you just read the book. Especially, let me be honest with you, especially in the case of these books, which have a lot going on. So when you're reading other people's summaries, there's a good chance you're reading somebody else's misunderstanding of the book.
Oh, big time. Big time. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I ever want spoilers. I think I just want the darn book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want my grubby little hands on it. We've had a pretty amazing year of you sitting on this Hickman secret. When you joined the X line, you knew that Hickman was coming on. You also knew that you had this window to be publishing X books until this relaunch, if you will. What was the decision making like to go into the Uncanny run and then into Age of X-Men, as opposed to just kind of continuing with the status quo of the Resurrection line books until Hickman hit?
It was really complicated. And I will first, I'll start by just correcting a slight thing, which is I didn't know for sure he was coming in. I knew pretty immediately upon becoming X-Men editor. I was told, we've been talking to Hickman and he wants to come in and pitch. It wasn't definitive.
Okay.
So it was like something's probably going to happen. I mean, we knew there was going to be a shakeup in general. But the fact that he was pitching meant it was like, well, that seems fairly likely.
That seems like a home run.
Look,
but you never know.
They put out an ad that was just his last name. That feels like he could kind of pitch his ideas, and a lot of people are gonna like, as long as it's not that bad, they're gonna say, I guess we're gonna trust you. You did make the best event that we've put out in maybe ever.
Maybe it was pretty big. I mean, yeah, of course, obviously, but he did still have to pitch, and
sure.
So he came in relatively soon into my run. I don't remember exactly when. In fact, at one point I was trying to look on my calendar to see if I could find like the meeting of like, here's when the day he came in and pitched, and I couldn't find it. I was really bummed.
Yes, you have the same year-end review strategy as I do, of looking at all of your meetings and trying to remember what you did for the last year.
But he came in, and we got him in a room with me, Joe Quesada, Dan Buckley, C.P. Cebulski. I think Tom Brevoort and Nick Lowe were both there as well as my X-Men folks. Chris Robinson and Elise was there back then. Darren was there as well. And he pitched us his idea for this crazy 2 miniseries series where all the other X-Men books would stop, and these would be the only books that existed for 12 weeks in a row. And it's not exactly the same as it is now, but a good amount of it is the same. A good amount of it, the big ideas were there. I would say critically there is one key element that changed that kind of is responsible for making me go from this will never work to actually this will work great.
We'll put a pin in that thing. One, and then I will ask you that at a later date. But
yes, a later date, probably pretty far in the future.
A year from now.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
It depends. Depends how things go. How things go. He's got big plans.
Yeah. 4 decades worth, right?
I was only joking about that. That was me exaggerating, but people did seem to take that very literally. That was a joke. He does have a long-term plan.
He just wants to get to like 18 years to top Claremont, and then he'll retire, right?
Exactly. That's all you need to do. But as soon as we heard the idea, again, it was so big, it changed so much, and it had so many great ideas to it. It's easy to say it changes so much, but it's important to note it changes so much in a way that is true to the X-Men's idea and spirit. It reveals it in a new light. You know, that kind of thing. Like, it's not like we went, well, now they're not mutants anymore. You'll see. You guys will see, obviously. But it was so cool. And again, my first reaction was, we can't do this. This is not going to work. And then in talking to him more and more, and the idea kind of morphing a tiny bit, like Joe Quesada gave a note that I think was perfect, and Jonathan took it, and it made the pitch even better. And now, from then on, I was very excited about it. And so it's been a very hard secret to keep. Now, your actual question. That was actually me just correcting that he wasn't already on board when I got there.
No, but that's very good, and very Hickman-like, gives us another piece to the puzzle that we did not previously have.
Yes,
that's true.
For the record, we like this kind of inside baseball, so thank you for that.
I don't know if our listeners do. I'm into it.
I don't know. That's what I
like. I hope so. As for how we decided what to do, I mean, again, we already knew there was going to be a shakeup of some sort, and then it became, once we committed to that Jonathan was going to come in, then it became, okay, well, when is that going to happen?
Right.
we figured out when that was going to happen. And then we went, okay, that's going to need some time. Again, it's 6 issues bi-weekly, essentially, on 2 different books. Those artists need a lot of time to get ahead and draw it. And so this is the soonest we thought we could pull it off. And there was a lot of back and forth about what will happen in the interim. Whether there will be an ongoing, whether there'll be a lot of different ideas of what form that would take, and we ended up with what I thought was a pretty fun one.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, one of the ways that came out was the Age of X-Man event, which I feel like Adam and I were, let's say, pretty big signal bearers of. We were excited for this thing, and we wanted to see what in the world it was. And I think what it ended up being was this big, weird, diverse world with super talented creators that told unique stories to the X-Men. Something that we honestly hadn't seen before. So I guess my question to you is, with this event out of the way, what are your takeaways from that event as a whole? What do you think worked really well about it? What do you think were, areas that, if you were to do it again, you might change some stuff?
Well, it's funny you say that. Like, in some ways I am doing it again. In the sense that it was. So to give people a little bit of background on it, we started this book called Uncanny X-Men, and we knew we were going to do that. Wow, as I think about it, it's sort of okay. This is me literally just thinking of this in the moment. And I promise you it was not planned this way. But in some ways, it's like I was preparing for the thing that we're doing now. Because we started with a 10-issue weekly series. Mm-hmm. And then we knew how that was going to end. And at some point we decided, we'll spin that ending into... For some reason, I keep wanting to say Adam X, and that's not the case.
No, but that would be very good, too. I also want to see that later.
X-Men, taking all the X-Men into another universe, into creating a universe for them, and making a new reality. And once we had that idea, then we were like, well, we'll do it kind of like Age of Apocalypse, obviously, where it's a connected miniseries. And again, that's sort of similar to what we're doing now in that we're doing 12 issues that come out weekly, and then we're spinning into a X-Men line that we are, I mean, it's no spoiler to say we are working it as a much tighter X-Men line than we have in the recent past.
Okay.
Jonathan is very much overseeing what we're doing for the Dawn of X books, and we are all working very closely together. Every creative team, every writer, to know what each other are doing and how and why and how the books fit together, and to create a cohesive new X-Men universe. So in a way, one of the things I took out of it was that's what we did for Age of X-Men. We were Zach and Lonnie came in. At one point we were talking about the disassembled writers doing this, but unfortunately all three of them got very busy with other books. They all in the interim had gotten other gigs, and we were like, I don't think we're going to be able to have them write oversee this era. So Zach and Lonnie had just done a run on Cable, and we knew they were very excited about the character X-Man, and they were. And the first time I talked to them, they absolutely like just sang his praises and talked about how like this is the story they were born to write. I could not have asked for a more enthusiastic pair of guys to write about Nate Gray. And so they went away when we talked to them and said, here's what we're looking for, this kind of a thing. They went away and came back with like a couple of pitches for the how the universe would work, and we kind of, I think, sort of combined two of them. One that had to do with the relationships and how him not wanting relationships and wanting everyone to be very individual in like this weird like contradictory thing of like individual for the strength of the whole sort of thing. Very, very strange and fun. And also the idea that he is the universe, like physically. They originally had it in a like a much kind of weirder version, but I'll leave that to them to tell at some point of what that meant. And we kind of combined those, and they wrote up an overarching thing of here's what we're going to do in the X-Men book, and they kind of went, here's our suggestions for what the other books could be. We took those like really rough ideas for what those could be and approached people, and we went to people whose work we found exciting, and we were able to go to people who hadn't really necessarily done a bunch of stuff for us before. And I'm very excited that we did, because they're people that working with Vita was amazing, working with Leah was amazing, and we're very excited to be able to work with them more.
Yeah, I think both of those books were a lot of the books were standouts to me. I really like the event in general, but I think Vita and Leah really shone as part of the event, and I'm so excited that you're bringing them back as part of the ongoing stuff.
And I agree. And so I think so I think the big thing I learned is just how to have a group of writers all working together and trying to weave it through together. And I think, I'm not saying it didn't go well on that. I think it did go well, but I think it's going even better now. Like I learned the ins and outs of it and what to avoid and what to encourage. And so we're doing that in a bigger way for the Dawn of X stuff.
For this specific podcast, that's a very encouraging takeaway. Now, one trend that fans did pick up during the interim of this last, let's call it year or so, was the deaths of a lot of characters in Uncanny X-Men. Some of this discourse was really heightened by frankly the sensitive nature of some of these deaths.
Sure.
I guess my question to you is, what does the editorial process look like when you're dealing with what are legitimately sensitive issues?
That's a great question. Well, I learned a lot doing the Blindfold issue that I didn't know before, and I'm glad that I did, because I will be honest with you, I was not aware of some of the facts about the representation of suicide in media. Now, I had heard about the Netflix show, 13
Reasons Why.
Yeah, I it's not a show I ever watched. So I didn't know the intimate details of it, but I had heard that it was being heavily criticized for it, and my understanding of it was that it was mostly centered around the fact that it was suicide used as like revenge, and like I'll show them, and that it seemed like it was effective in that, and so that obviously is not a lovely thing to encourage. But I hadn't heard before working on this issue about the statistics involving the depiction causing copycat type situations, just from the depiction itself, not regardless of the intent of the like revenge type of a thing.
Sure.
Because to my mind, I had always seen it as, well, no, you depict this thing as terrible and awful across the board, then it comes off as awful, and we all understand that's a bad thing. But now I know that that's not the case. That if you're having those problems and you see it, it doesn't hit you that way.
Right.
And so that was something that came up very, very close to sending that issue to press, and like right at the end. And I did not, again, I had never heard that before, and so upon hearing that, I was like, oh, wow, like obviously none of us want that. So we did some changes to the book based on that, and we put in the hotline information. Again, I know that even still, it still kind of struck people as a bit too much. But obviously, I never intend for anyone to be hurt by images that we put in our comics. So, yeah, I take it as a learning experience, and we're doing our best not to ever do anything like that in a way that hurts people in the future.
Oh, I think that's fair. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here, and let's move on to our House of X, our Powers of 10, our Hoxpox. Just read Powers of 10 #1 today. Are we saying that all of X-Men continuity takes place over 10 calendar years?
So no, there's a thing that I've seen some people comment on this on the internet, but not a lot of them. There's a thing in math about orders of magnitude.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And which says that basically you round to the nearest order of magnitude.
Ah.
So
you're not wrong.
Yeah. So 1, 10, 100, 1000, like 15 would still be 10, 20 would still be 10. I think if I remember, it's been a while since I really looked into it, but I think it's like 30 something where that starts going. Maybe at this point you start maybe going up. Although no, even that wouldn't make. No, I don't know. It's tricky. It's not as simple as you think it is. I know. I just remember it's not like 50 where like it was with normal estimation. But it's again, nobody likes my answers to how long it's been because it's always going to be like 12, 13 years. It's not a lot of time. 10 years is short, but it's not that much longer.
Yeah,
okay,
Cyclops is 27 or 28, guys. Sorry.
Okay, one, you're wrong. But two, the one thing I don't get, because, I mean, comic book time just will never make sense, and that's fine, and we just all need to accept it.
It actually makes perfect sense. Al Ewing fixed it.
Al Ewing fixed it by hand-waving it all away.
The entire universe has
jumbo.
has a gravity of time in the same way that we have gravity of mass, and time, all of time and instances are pulled forward with the mass of the present.
Look, I love Al Ewing. I think Ultimate Squared was beautiful and it was a great series. That's jumbo garbage.
And
that's
I happen to know that you are a fan of Worst X-Men Ever.
Yes, I think it's still in our
fan.
top 10 X-Men stories ever.
Which also explains it.
It sure does. In a very satisfying way.
It does. It involves Max Bemis writing a letter. It's very
So there you go. It all works. So I mean, there's an even bigger real answer, obviously. Well, first of all, there's my other joke answer, that I love, which is the one where I revealed that every panel of every comic is a different universe.
Sure, which is also good.
I love that answer. But no, there's the bigger real answer, which is it's all fun make-em-ups, guys. So when you read a comic that has Ronald Reagan in it, like, does your brain break? Like, what does everybody do? Like, he was president a long time ago. Cyclops, you guys can argue with me that Cyclops isn't 27 or 28, but we all agree he's not 65, right?
Yeah, that would also be nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that they literally and directly talk about what year it is and who the president is at many times during the past of the X-Men, you have to kind of mentally go in and go, I've edited that in my head as a reader, so that no longer is the case. The same is true with the number of years passing. The same is true. Guess what? Sometimes it might even be true if they said in the past it's been 15 years and now we're going, no, it hasn't. That no longer is the case. That balloon, just like when them going, you know who the president is, Ronald Reagan, those both changed. Or
So
listen, if you'd like, listen, this is not going to happen. I was going to say, though, if you guys want, we could put out X-Men Digest like they do with Archie, and we'll update all the things.
Yes. Dan Buckley, call me. That would be very good.
Where they replace Magnum PI with, what were they watching? What would
Also
they have watched
Magnum
instead of
PI. We will just replace it with the new Magnum PI that was just out recently.
That's so, but I understand it wasn't good for what, that's my understanding, so.
Continuity aside, you're working with, again, Jonathan Hickman, who, I've gotten a chance to meet him very briefly. He seems like a nice gentleman. But
He's super fun.
He gives off, let's say he puts on a persona with the internet. So, question to you.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman, secretly delightful or as much of a handful as he appears?
Those are not, that's not an or situation.
So
that's
both.
an and situation. He's delightful. He knows his own ability.
I would agree.
He knows how wonderful he is, and he's not afraid to tell you in the most delightful
I think
ways.
that's fair. Now, before we were talking about this joke that Hickman made at SDCC about 4 decades worth of plans for the X-Men. While that may have been said in jest, I do kind of assume that Jonathan has a bit of a more long-term strategy.
100%.
Yeah. So it's 2019. I think the longest running numbered series at Marvel right now is probably Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur?
I think Squirrel Girl has it by an issue or two.
Right. So how do you approach a long-term plan for storytelling with this franchise when the long runs that, I think a lot of older fans are used to from the 80s and the 90s are a rarity now?
The X-Men was the last series to reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working on it at the time, and I was very unhappy that we were doing that.
If it helps, you guys rebooting it was the reason I said, X-Men's at number 1 now? I should probably pick this up. I heard good things about X-Men. I liked it as a kid.
And can I tell you, honestly, it happens because it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I as a reader who's been reading comics for a long time, I do miss large. When I started reading Spider-Man, it was around issue 300. I wasn't like, what do I got to read, 299 issues? Like, I just picked it up because it was good. Comics were very different though then, and a lot of things were different. The way people approached media was different. The options available to them were different. As much as it saddens me to say it, like, I've seen the evidence in the sales. If you don't reboot the book, the sales will go down, and if you do, the sales will go up. And I know it's a temporary boost, yes, but having a temporary boost means the numbers start at a higher point when they start going down. Mm-hmm. So it's helpful. So how do you approach that? I think the big thing is I don't have the long-term plan for numbering worked out. Like, I can't tell you what the number on Jonathan's last issue is going to be. That said, his plan is really big and as wide as well as long. Like I said, Dawn of X is very interconnected and very involved with his idea. It's going to be multiple books. It's entirely possible that the books that he's working on start and stop in numbering as well over the amount of time of his run. We will do our best to make it clear what books you need to follow. Although again, need to follow is a weird thing to say. Will hopefully choose to follow because you love them so much.
Look, some of us do have a need, and it's unhealthy, but it's there.
I mean, I know all about it. I'm still following a lot of books. So,
well, so you brought up numbering, which isn't the approach I think we were taking on this question, but I like
oh,
it. And
I'm sorry. What did you mean?
I just meant like in general. How do you plan for?
Oh, well, then in that case, I'll actually be honest with you. I think wrong is too strong of a term. I think you're neglecting a lot of things in favor of other things.
Sure.
When people say there are no long runs anymore, they're wrong. That is flat out false. There are lots of long runs. You're just not thinking about those ones. You're thinking about the ones that aren't long runs. Jason Aaron's been on Thor for years.
Yep.
Yes, and it rules.
It rules. Jerry Duggan was on Deadpool for ages. Dan Slott was on Spider-Man for a zillion years. Jonathan obviously had a long run both on FF and then later on Avengers. Brian Bendis had a lot of long runs on a lot of things. If we're talking about, Jason Aaron is a good example. Jason Aaron is currently, I don't know what the issue on the stands right this second is. Is it? I know that we've started soliciting a new
Thor
number
or
one,
Avengers?
right?
Well, are we in
Thor?
We're post-war realms. We're in.
It's Thor 15, but about to be what is
Right.
Old Man Thor number 1?
Yeah.
King
Right.
Thor.
Exactly, King Thor. So his run on Thor has been involved a lot of numbers, and I know that is confusing to some people. And
Yes, I have it all in trade. It's impossible to organize.
well, that's unfortunate. I mean, honestly, that is unfortunate, and I hope that we find a better system for that. I really do. I know that Jonathan has a lot of big ideas about a lot of things, and one of them is how his books are collected as well. So we have talked and thought about a lot about how things are going to be collected in the X-Men universe, and fingers crossed we will make some really awesome things work.
That's awesome. Now, follow up to all of that. You don't know what number there's going to be on where it ends. Let me ask this. Is Adjectiveless X-Men going to continue with the legacy numbering? And if so, do you have any idea what number it's going to be? Because it could be like 8 different ones.
No, it's not. I'm sorry.
Look, that's probably a good thing. For being honest.
Yeah,
Again,
I feel like
don't know what to call X-Men number anything anymore.
Yeah,
It's
I feel
been
like we're
4
coming
series at the
across
same
as
time.
as high number enthusiasts, which we're not. I think
Okay.
what we're more interested in is just when someone like Jason Aaron comes into the room and eventually we realize that his story is bigger than just 12 issues worth, and Jonathan Hickman is probably coming at you with something that is much broader than what might be expected out of a general writer coming into your office. I'm just kind of curious how that works now, because so many writers are coming onto a book and maybe just doing a year or maybe doing 2 years and they're gone.
Sure.
Whereas Hickman is clearly setting some very, very, these are statement books.
Yeah.
Just in these 2 issues, we're getting so much new that clearly this is going to have impacts for a long time.
Well, Jonathan is a super pro. Like he knows what he's doing and he's thought through everything he's doing. So, if he had come into that pitch meeting and we'd all been like, yeah, it's a fun idea, but I don't know if this is like a long-term thing. He probably would have been able to go, okay, cool, we'll do it in like 12 issues and then I'll be out or whatever. But that's not what happened. We were like, oh, we love it, we want to support it, and he's like, great, then here's how we expand it to boom, there you go. Not expand it, and I don't mean expand it. I don't want people thinking he had a 12-issue story and now it's going to be 100 issues. I mean, to places the story will go from there. Super
That's
decompression. He turned 12 issues into 100 issues. No. He had new twists and turns that could go forward from there.
That's exciting. Now that the House and the Powers are out in the world, What's your reaction been to seeing, the response from critics, from fans, from, kind of everywhere, with everyone with their theories and their ideas and their all this stuff?
I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to finally see what people are making of it. I mean, again, this is a crazy book. Only 2 issues out of these 12 issues are out, and
Right.
I think Jonathan has said a lot that part of his goal is that, when you read an issue, you'll go, now I got to go back and read the previous issue. Like things change. I mean, I think that you've seen some of that with just the first 2, that there's things that happen in Powers of 10 that are like, wait, really? Based on what you just learned about what that meant for House of X. That gets, there's some issues that do that even in much bigger ways. And so it's very interesting to see people theorizing because, I mean, generally speaking, they have no idea where we're going, which is great.
And yet some people have gotten it spot on the entire time, as I'm sure you're aware.
So, look, does Mars exist in our comic? Yes.
Yes! That's all I needed. You don't have to go on
See,
anymore.
but I kind of
canon.
felt like the thrust of your theory was your pun.
Yes.
Which
You're not wrong.
is not in either of these 2 issues so far.
Look, we got 10 more. I'm writing this thing. We got breeding pits on Mars. We got pod people. We got people whose foreheads and their secret third eyes are being covered up. We got time to get there.
Okay.
Well, let's look a little farther down the line. So
Sure.
just recently we got the announcements for Dawn of X. Really cool lineups, really cool teams, very unexpected things, like a 3-person Fallen Angels book. So are these books that are specifically being pitched by Hickman and then filled with respective creative teams, or are we in a situation where we kind of have the status quo and now you're looking out for the creative teams that can work within this new version of the X universe?
Well, that's a great question. They are books that, for the most part, they're books that were pitched by the writers. The idea that became Marauders, Jerry actually pitched to me probably a year ago at this point.
Oh, wow.
Like, immediately upon hearing Jonathan's first version of this story, he was like, okay, here's what I want to do. And it was amazing because he was in the big Marvel Summit where Jonathan talked about it. And I was like, that's a really fun idea. Now it's changed a bunch since then, but there is a big core of it that was still the same back then. I mean, I might as well say it's the pirate part.
Yeah.
That was the main thrust. The ins and outs of why and who exactly have shifted a bit, but it's great. And then the bulk of the others, I mean, I will say we knew that we were going to have some sort of an X-Force book, but I don't think we told Ben Percy. We might have, but it wasn't like you have to do an X-Force book. I think it was probably more along the lines of, what do you think about doing an X-Force book? And this is what he came up with for it, which is really fun. I think Teeny pitched us Excalibur. We had an X-Men Summit. Again, I don't remember exactly when, but we had an X-Men Summit where we had people bring ideas for the books and what they were looking to explore. And Teeny brought that idea, and Brian pitched us the idea that turned into Fallen Angels. It wasn't called Fallen Angels at the time.
Right. I assume his pitch didn't involve a significant portion of Bill the Lobster content.
No, there's like a big question of who's going to eat the lobster.
Jordan, you can see in our chat, you can see that Bill the Lobster is my icon. So this is coming from a place of true love. So why do you hurt me so much?
It's gonna be like that. There's that Simpsons episode, right, where only Homer can eat the lobster because he loved him so much.
Oh, Bill.
Boy.
Mourn you till I join you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah. generally speaking, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I talk for a moment about story pitches and ideas, I mean, there's a sense to people. People like to talk about editorial mandates.
Right. You're a fascist dictator who's telling everyone what to do all the time, right, Jordan?
Right. And that's not the case. And honestly, it's not even like the relationship that I have with the creators isn't even like I'm the principal or their boss or something. Like it's as collaborative as possible. And yes, I work for the company and they are freelancing for the company. Like we are in different positions. But generally speaking, I will go to people and I'm not like, here's what you need to write. This. If I go to someone and I bring an idea, it's me going, hey, what do you think about this idea? And they, as a collaborator, will either go, oh, that sounds cool. Or sometimes, no, that doesn't sound cool. Here's what I'm thinking instead. It's very collaborative. It's very up in the air. So generally speaking, we didn't go to people and go, here's exactly what you need to write.
Yeah.
There are things coming up in the future where it is a little bit more like, oh, we need something to deal with this idea, because Jonathan does have a big plan. In the opening books, those are the ones Jonathan is just writing. So it was a lot easier. He just was like, I'm writing this and I'm writing this. Mm-hmm. Now there's a lot more room to do the other things. What do you guys want to do? And then that's what we got from the other writers.
I think that's exciting. I think that sounds like a healthy way to do things, but I'm not an editor. I don't know how any of this works.
I think it is. Who knows?
That's good. Now, one thing about these lineups that we noticed is there aren't any solo titles.
Correct.
I assume by your enthusiasm that was intentional. And I know last time we chatted, because I was listening to it today, not because I have a very good memory, You had mentioned that there were some struggles with solo titles in X-Men. So was this a legitimate like 1-to-1 reaction to that, or do you got some ideas for solo stuff in the future?
No, I mean that certainly is a factor, but that's not why there aren't any here. I mean, again, it was a deliberate choice not to do solo books because yes, the X-Men as a franchise generally works best with teams. That's what the X-Men are about, which is not to say there haven't been great stories told in solo stories, but and like you said, I think we did talk about this last time, but I think we've cracked how to tell a Wolverine ongoing series. Like we know.
Okay.
No, I mean in general, like the history has shown is what I'm saying. Like,
okay. Yes. No, he's had 4 billion issues.
Right. He's a character that we have that in much the same way that you know what a Spider-Man ongoing is about. You know what a Captain America ongoing is about. You know what an Iron Man one is about. You know what a Wolverine ongoing is about. Generally speaking, you can kind of go, this is the sort of stories it'll be. This is why it works as a solo character. Blah 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 blah. There you go. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's true for most X-Men characters. That doesn't mean it's not worth trying. It's of course worth trying. I don't think any of them has ever. Any of the other ones have jumped out in a big way that it's like, oh, that's it. Because if it did, I think they'd still be going on. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not to say there haven't been great runs. There absolutely have. They're just not as kind of universal and forever generating of stories as a lot of the other solo characters are. I think in addition to that in general, because that's not the only reason that this is, in addition, it's just given what is going on in the X-Men universe, in House of X and Powers of 10, it's better to start off on this foot of here's teams. That is a thing that can and will develop. There will eventually be other solo books again, but we're going to start out with
this. In Marvel's not going to stop publishing Wolverine.
Yeah, well, we did for a while, I guess.
I said
right?
Okay, forever.
Oh,
it has actually been like 5 years since there's been a, old hairy man Wolverine book.
Well, Dead Man Logan is still.
Yeah, I was going to say that's 100% inaccurate.
Yeah, Dead Man Logan hasn't finished yet.
You're not wrong. There's not been a traditional Wolverine title since Death of Wolverine?
A Wolverine ongoing series.
Yes. Well, all new Wolverine, but never mind. We're getting into semantics here.
A Wolverine, meaning Logan, ongoing series that isn't Old Man Logan.
Yes.
Yes. Or Marvel Comics Presents.
That's a lot of caveats. And we did just do the Wolverine Infinity War series, which for some reason a lot of people said it's part of his return, and I was like, no, he's back. That's why he's on an adventure now. But okay.
I'm not going to say who might have said that.
A lot of people.
Some people. I don't know who they would be, but no, that's interesting. So I think at this point, Adam, you've got some Twitter questions that I'm sure Jordan's not tired of people asking him questions on Twitter. So we figured.
Honestly, I wish I could do more Twitter Q&As. They're hard. Mm-hmm. They're hard because I get a lot of spoiler questions.
Yeah, of course, because everybody just wants to know what's happening next, and we've selected a few here that I don't think trespass into that territory. Some people actually had some pretty interesting questions here. So,
excellent,
yeah.
excellent.
So let's start with Charlie Etheridge Nunn at Charlie_EN. Is editing Jonathan Hickman's charts different than editing his general comic scripts? Do they start off handwritten or on some kind of spreadsheet before they get all their beautiful design work applied to them?
That's a great question. It's different in that, obviously it requires slightly different skills, but as for the actual practicality of how it happens, the first issue, it happened that way, where not handwritten, but he gave us like a RTF file or something that with the text on it. But ever since then, it's been us just getting beautiful, not hand, but manually designed files from him that we read and do proofreading on. Which obviously works a lot of the time, although there already have been mistakes. So sorry about that. It's definitely difficult proofreading Krakoan. So we did make a mistake in that first issue regarding that.
Is it more or less difficult proofreading Krakoan than Dupespeak?
It's a little bit more right now because we're less used to it. Although, there's definitely a bunch of letters that I now know on site for Krakoan.
That's beautiful.
For sure.
I feel like we're all going to get there at some point.
I think we will.
Yeah. You mentioned Star Wars before. Scott Redmond, Agent of Girl at Scott P. Redmond, asks, for you personally, what has been the biggest difference between editing X-Men and the other lines you have edited in the past?
This is going to sound crazy, but I feel like the fandom is more intense.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know. And of course, like as X-Men fans, you guys are going, yeah, of course. But think about it. We're talking about Star Wars fans. They're pretty intense.
Right.
Yeah, they're crazy
That's a
too.
lot.
They're pretty intense. But I maybe because it's a smaller and tighter community, I feel it more with X-Men. That's probably why. But I definitely feel it in a way that I didn't with Star Wars as much. But I enjoy that. Again, I like that people are passionate about the books, and I am passionate about the books. The difference is I'm passionate about them in a different way than y'all are, because I'm passionate about them from the point of view of someone who's helping to make the story happen, and as opposed to just someone who's enjoying them.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's different, and that relationship is interesting and weird, but I hope it's good.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I hope that tracks.
Is that the only way? It's obviously working with Lucasfilm for Star Wars is a very different experience than working on books that are wholly Marvel. But then again, I also worked on all the Deadpool books for a long time. Honestly, I probably was able to get away with a lot more on the Deadpool books because people were kind of like, I can't even believe these are working. I guess keep going, that sort of thing. There's definitely a lot more like, what are you doing over there kind of stuff going on with X-Men.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything too crazy, are you? And we're like, no, just charts for a million pages.
Just Krakoa tumors, nothing big. One Wheelchair X asks, after a year as the X-Men editor, have any of your opinions on individual X characters or X-Men relationship storylines changed since you started?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer is 1,000,000,000,000,000%. Yeah, absolutely. And that has to do with exactly what I was talking about before, that I love my job and I love making stories with people. And putting out comic books that I care about affects how I feel about the characters in them. 100,000,000%. A lot of X-Men fans have asked me things over the years and months more recently, and I usually will give pretty truthful answers of my opinions of things, because my opinions are just my opinions, right? But then they like to be able to make a mental profile of me and know everything that I will think before I think it, which is generally 80% wrong when they do that. But yes, to complicate that, doing stories about the characters definitely changes how I feel about them. I feel differently about Emma Frost from working on X-Men Black and talking with Leah about her and figuring out where things are going to go with her across this year and then going forward. Not in the way that I'm like, oh, I 100% went back on it and she's like an angel.
No, she's running the Hellfire Trading Society or whatever it is.
Yeah, Hellfire Trading Company.
Yeah, the trading company's always the good guys in all those pirate stories, right?
Well, that I can't comment on. You'll see. I mean, the Marauders. Well, anyway, you'll see. I mean, and part of it is because I feel like when we're talking about these characters, well, I mean, when we're talking about characters like Emma and Magneto, I feel like there are some fans who really want to be like, no, they're great and they're right. And I like them a lot, but I like them for their flaws. And I honestly, I kind of like a lot of characters for their flaws. Mm-hmm. I'm rereading the Morrison X-Men right now. And I was tweeting about it, and some people love it and some people hate it. And some of the Cyclops fans who hate it because it made him do these awful things. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Everybody does bad things. Like I don't know. I find it interesting that his relationship isn't perfect. Like I think that's good.
Yeah. It's more interesting.
Yeah. And now I just made all Cyclops fans hate me. So there you go.
Jordan, please. You did that months ago.
I know. Again, I reinforced it. But honestly, yes. Jonathan is a really good writer, and he is able to write characters in ways that make me reconsider how they work and what is good about them. And the same is true for the people that I've worked with up and down the line. I mean, again, why do I like Sage? I like Sage because I worked on New Exiles. I mean...
Yeah, I read that last weekend. I've been meaning to talk to you about that one, Jordan.
Speaking of pirates,
I know you were new.
I wasn't. I mean, I was assistant editing that book, so I was not editing that book, but I was assistant editing, and I was just learning what I was doing. I wrote a lot of recaps.
You weren't going to give notes to. You weren't going to give notes to comic book legend Chris Claremont on that story.
Well, it depends on what you mean by notes. I literally gave him notes on my first day. Like they literally had me call him on the phone and tell him our notes.
How intimidating was that?
Pretty intimidating. I mean, they weren't like, throw out what you're doing, Chris, start over. Like, they were like, constructive notes. Like, on this page, we're thinking something more like this. Or, part isn't working. Here's why we don't think it's working. What do you think? That kind of stuff. But, yes, very intimidating. It was crazy. But I had fun working on it because, again, that was one of the first comics I ever got to work on. My first actual credited comic book is Exiles number 99. From a little bit before New Exiles. But I worked on Die by the Sword, and then I worked on New Exiles, and I just thought Sage was fun. And honestly, also, can I be honest, partially because there were fans who were passionate about her, and they made me interested in her.
Oh, yeah.
Wild stuff. Yeah.
All right, our next question comes to us from @RobertScundis, who is the co-writer of the Hoxpox Talks, which is co-written by Chris Edelman and hosted at XavierFiles.com.
Thank you for the plug.
They are doing a great job over there. I thought this was a really interesting question. So
Are they working on the Powers of X ones right now?
yes,
I mean, like, I'm editing it at lunch tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I can't
it'll be
wait.
up by the time y'all are listening to this, guys.
Yeah.
It's up. Go to it. Go to the website. It's right there.
Yeah.
Go.
Sweet.
just by chance, we happen to know a biologist and a religious scholar, so it seems to be a good combo, right? Okay. Robert's question is that a teacher has informed you that they are going to teach a course with Hoxpox as the central story. They need either a movie, a novel, or a story, not a comic book, that would fill out the syllabus, the what's being taught in the course. You do a great job of making song recommendations as part of your X-Men Monday features. Can you think of something that would fill out this Hoxpox course for this professor?
Well, first, let me start by saying I definitely am scared by those music recommendations because I'm so nervous about things that I'm not thinking of in the song. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'll be flipping through my collection being like, what do you think of this? Oh, what do you think of this? And then I'll have to be like, oh, that one's good. But then I'm like, but is there some like weird line in there that people are going to be like, oh, why does he recommend a song that says this about this character?
Yep.
I have to
been
really,
there.
I really have to think about it and go, blah, 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 blah. This is a tough one. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm not going to say, which is that there were actually a couple of things that Jonathan specifically was like referenced to me and we're like, you should check these out. And I can't say them because I think they're too spoilery. So let me dredge the depths of my brain to see what kind of stuff would make sense for this. Oh, man.
While he's dredging, I'm going to answer this for myself, Adam,
Please.
based only on my limited knowledge, which is two issues of this book, and mostly the first one. And what I'd say is the film Annihilation,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
because they talk about Hox genes in it. They do. I paused the film when I was watching it, and I texted the guys who were watching who were writing the Hoxbox stuff, including Robert, and I said, guys, they just said this. It means something. This is a clue. But also, it's a very engaging, kind of high sci-fi suspense film with a lot of the same like natural elements and a lot of the, kind of higher level stuff that Hickman has been doing in the first two issues.
Man, that's a really good answer.
I know, that's why I stole it. I just bought.
And Zach,
I
you
literally
just got
got
the
the
books,
hardcover of the novels like before this.
You're gonna love
Oh.
it, Zach. You're gonna love it. Well, Jordan, if you need a little more time, we can move on to a different one.
Yeah, let me try to just like let the back of my head work out. Because here's the thing, I'll be honest with you. Like I don't. A lot of times in my free time, I engage in a lot more ridiculous media, like sometimes horror movies or detective stories or stuff like that I don't take necessarily as much of my brain as House of X and Powers of 10 do. So I'm sure there are some that, and I'm going to try to think about them. But like I'm like, well, what have I read? And it's like everything I've read recently is a lot of like detective novels and stuff.
So you're saying the 2014 Evil Dead is not a good reference?
Like I would love to say it is, but it's not.
Yeah,
I'll keep thinking about it. I'll keep thinking
I
about it.
think we've got like one other question on Twitter.
Yeah, should I go for the softball question? I like this last one.
Sure, go for
I
it.
gotta ask this question.
We've been mean enough on this
Yes,
one.
Uncanny T-Rex Jones at Seeking Dystopia with a 0 asks, Jordan, what is your favorite kind of muffin? And subsequently, what is your favorite X-Men character's favorite muffin?
Oh, gee whiz. That's hard.
There is a wrong answer to this, by the way.
Oh, no.
There is? It's Jordan's favorite. How can there be wrong?
There's good muffins and bad muffins.
I mean, I'm going to say like corn muffin, like a cornbread muffin. Those are really good.
That's a more savory muffin than I expected.
But like usually there's like a sweetness to the top part, not like frosting, but like a little bit of sweetness. There's like honey, not literally dripping off of it, but honey baked into the top.
But that's like a level of of sweetness removed from like a banana nut muffin, not
No,
even
right.
like a true dessert muffin.
My second choice probably would have been like apple cinnamon, which obviously is
apple
much more of a
cinnamon's
sweet
good.
one.
So then, twisting that, what is Seiji's favorite muffin?
No, Sage is not my favorite X-Men character, just to be clear. She's great.
No, but we've talked about her enough.
Okay. Oh, jeez. So Sage is real classy. So what's a real classy muffin?
You are asking the wrong dudes.
I mean, honestly, I'm not classy either. I mean, you probably noticed whenever anybody asks me where Sage is, I always have said in a bathtub sipping wine. That's my go-to answer. Now it's not true anymore. Now she's
she's
in
running
that
the
control
Krakoa
center.
computer.
Yeah. Let's see. What's the classiest muffin? Probably like something like really fancy, like a lemongrass poppy muffin or something like that.
Ooh,
Yes.
that's a good
I
one.
like that. That was gourmet.
That's a good one.
That was a little more challenging than I expected it to be.
It is. The only thing I have for classy muffin is this picture of this muffin with a monocle and a mustache. And that's all Google could give me when I typed in classy muffins.
And it says English muffin. It's a pun. It's hilarious.
I like that a lot.
It's very good. Guys, just type in classy muffins on Google. You'll find
There
it.
you
It's the funny one at
And
the
if
front.
you end up at an adult site, no, that was Zach's fault.
I would hope not. I have safe search on. Don't click the bachelorette party button that's next to it, though, for some reason.
Okay.
That's not a joke. It says birthday muffins, happy birthday, fancy bachelorette party. I assume number 4 is going to get you to some content. Now, with
Oh man.
with all that aside, Jordan, I want to thank you so much for being on the show this week. It was a lot of fun, and we're really excited about what's coming next and what you got in the pipeline.
I've been trying to think more about this, the recommended reading or watching, and I'm trying to think of like a really cool piece of media that spans millennia. And I just am coming up blank. Like I didn't see that movie, the Wachowski movie.
Cloud Atlas?
Yeah, I didn't see that, and so I've heard mixed things, so I don't want to recommend a movie. I don't know if it's any good.
Can I make a recommendation? Read the book.
You may.
Read the book.
Is it a good book?
Book is fantastic. I
So then-
can't get through the movie, but I do really like the book.
That's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting concept.
Oh, it's great.
And again, I'm sure there are some really good sci-fi books aside from the 2 that Jonathan recommended that I can't give for spoiler reasons.
Fair. That's fair enough.
But I can't. I'm not
So
coming up with anything.
is the answer that yes, you have recommended reading, but you gotta wait a bit before you tell people?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That's fair. So Robert,
sorry.
more to come.
More to
I
come.
feel bad.
No, don't feel bad.
I mean,
Just
You're
watch.
doing great.
yeah.
Here, watch
I'll
Brazil.
tell him
Brazil's
not to
great.
get excited.
Does it
Brazil?
make any? Yeah, I don't know.
Ooh.
Like, does it have anything to do with this? Not really, but it's great, and you'll get something out of it.
You're absolutely correct.
It's a great movie.
Well, that's great. Now, Jordan, where can what do you got going on? Where can people find you online? What you up to besides redefining X-Men?
Oh, aside from that, well, I'm on Twitter at Crackshot with a 0 instead of an O.
Yes.
For reasons.
If you want to know those reasons, go listen to our last date interview.
I am still doing Sailor Business, which is a podcast about Sailor Moon. We are just a few episodes into the last season of the 1992 Sailor Moon anime, the Sailor Stars season. We just finished the Queen Helenia section of that season and are about to start the Sailor Starlights section. We took a few weeks off because of Comic-Con and other life things that were happening in July, but we're about to come back. If you're a fan of Sailor Moon, Sailor Moon's a lot of fun. We struggled a lot with season 4 because it's not good.
Oh,
Yeah. And also these seasons, I don't know if you know, it's one of these it's anime seasons, so they're like 40 episodes each. So it was a real slog getting through the bad season about a romance between a little girl and a horse. Kind of.
Wait, like Supergirl?
So Supergirl did come up. Chris did talk about Supergirl. Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, but Sailor Moon in general is a lot of fun, and so I do recommend checking out Sailor Business if you like it. What else am I doing? I did record 2 X-Men songs for people, but you guys kept making me do songs about the most obscure X-Men ever, so I haven't gone back to it recently.
Look, fair.
And then I tried to do why don't we do a thing where you guys pick an issue and I'll write a song about it, but then like basically no issue got 2 votes, and I was like, this is a pain. I'm not doing
there's
this.
several. I don't know if you know it. There's several X-Men.
I know, but I was hoping some people would get behind one. Like people would be like, "Oh yeah, that one. Like I vote for that too." But everybody was just
you
like,
gotta give people 4 options in a poll and just run with it. You're giving the people too much power. Give them the illusion of choice, Jordan.
"Oh, I've heard that before." Yeah, I guess that's about it. Other than that, just Marvel Comics that I work on. There's a lot of fun. We just did a really awesome 5-issue series called Secret Warps, which is super fun. If people haven't read that.
I did hear from a certain writer that there was a Ghost Panther involved.
There is Ghost Panther. It's a universe that is made up of Marvel characters mashed together in 2s. So there's Soldier Supreme, Iron Hammer, Ghost Panther, Arachnite, and Weapon Hex. And they all team up to fight a giant crazy thing. Basically, Al Ewing wrote it, and Al Ewing is a mad genius. He basically took inspiration on every one of these issues where he would go, each one is like a combination of 2 Marvel events.
Nice.
That's a high concept I can't get behind.
And then, do you want me to drop a spoiler for the last issue?
Absolutely, because I've got 6 months before those are hitting that app, Jordan. I'm going to be honest.
The Infinity Warps get mashed up together in the last issue.
Oh. Mashup of mashups.
Yeah, he makes it work. When he pitched that to me, I was like, I think that's going too far. Like, that's not going to make sense. And
That's a lot.
And then he wrote it, and I was like, never mind.
Well, if
It's
anybody was
perfect.
going to make it work, Al Ewing would be the person, right?
Again, I think we said earlier in this episode, he's pretty good.
He sure is. I love him. So I do some other weird stuff. I got Gwenpool coming out soon as well, which is a lot of fun, by Leah Williams. And so I do work on other stuff that isn't X-Men, although not quite as much of it as I used to.
Awesome. That is great. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, you can catch this and everything else we do on XavierFiles.com. That's where you have Hoxpox Talks, which the second article will have been out by now. You can also find my writing in 240 characters or less of bad content on Twitter.com at XavierFiles. And I think that's pretty much... because we didn't mention it on the last episode because it didn't exist. If you go on over to the Young Ones podcast, you can hear an episode that me, Adam, friends of the show, Dan Grote, Charlie Davis, and Chris Edelman did talking about House of X and the Dawn of X books.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun to do. I only had 4 whiskeys during it.
Goodness gracious.
It was a long day. It was Sunday. It was fine. Adam, what are you up to?
All right, guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. I've got new pages of Bish and Jubes, The Cross Time Conundrum, every X-Men Monday at adamrec.tumblr.com. And that's about it. That's what's going on. Jordan, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
Well, thank you. I hope it was good. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
It was. Now, next week we have something special. We have a regular episode, but we are jumping into one of my favorite stories of all time.
Oh. In
one of my favorite universes of all time.
Oh.
It's an Age of Apocalypse episode, guys.
Yes. This is going to be a good one.
There's only one of the stories is from the original Age of Apocalypse, so it's going to be a little wild.
Oh my.
It's the best one too, guys. It's the one that's really good and still holds up better than like almost anything from the 90s. But anyway, guys, until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!